I weighed myself a couple of weeks ago and I was disturbed, but not surprised, to see that I now weigh more than Homer Simpson. Yes, I am now fatter than a fictional man whose two main character traits are being fat and stupid. For what it's worth, I don't think I'm stupider than he is, but I'm pretty sure I could find at least a few people who would claim that I am. At least I'm definitely not bald. Having said that, I am older than he is, and I have been for a few years now. He's got the edge on me in that respect, of course, since he doesn't age, but it really is a testament to just how long The Simpsons has been around now. To better illustrate the passage of time, here's a photo of me as I am now in all my Homerifically overweight glory. And here, brace yourselves, is a photo of me as I was in 1989, the year The Simpsons first went to air. Just look at me with that mischievous glint in my eye. I was basically a real-life Bart. Oh, who am I kidding? I was more of a Lisa than a Bart, what with my nerdiness, know-it-allism and general lack of friends. Even here, you can see my only real friend was a giant stack of pixels. And I'm not the only one who thought I was more of a Lisa than a Bart. Around the time this photo was taken, I went to a horse riding camp where I was assigned to the girls' dormitory. I had to point out that despite my gorgeous golden locks, I was still a boy, even if my nickname was indeed Goldilocks. So yes, The Simpsons started when I was in primary school and it's still going strong. Except strong isn't really the right word, is it? I don't hate the recent episodes of The Simpsons as much as some people do, and again, recent may not be the right word. By most accounts, it's been over 2 decades since the show was at its peak. But I will definitely admit there has been a large downturn in quality. Which is hardly surprising. How do you keep a show fresh after more than 700 episodes? The answer, of course, is you don't. It's just not possible. Not without reinventing the show in such drastic ways that it no longer has any relationship to what came before. But there was a time when The Simpsons was not only fresh, it was a cultural phenomenon. And like every cultural phenomenon, it spawned a veritable treasure trove of merchandise, offshoots, and other little artifacts for the world to marvel over. Remember the Bartman?
Hey everybody, should I remind you? Out in the sun, you should come Bart every man.
I didn't until very recently. I do remember the Bart Simpson t-shirt I had though. I might have preferred a Lisa t-shirt, but I was already providing the bullies with more than enough fodder. Like the Ninja Turtles before it, one of my favourite bits of Simpsons paraphernalia was the arcade game. It was released in 1991, a couple of years after the TMNT game, but I'm honestly not sure which one I personally played first. I think it may actually have been The Simpsons, but due to the fact that there was a TMNT cabinet in a shop quite close to my house, while the nearest Simpsons machine was quite a few miles away, it was the Turtles who claimed more of my time and of my pocket money. Which, in retrospect, is a bit of a shame because while the Turtles arcade game is great, I'd say the Simpsons game is even better. In many ways they're very similar, which is not surprising given they were both made by Konami, but The Simpsons perhaps benefits from the advances made in technology and game design in the short time between the two games. The gaming world was developing rapidly in that era. Certainly the presentation of The Simpsons is just as good as the Turtles game, if not better. The art is perhaps a little wonky in places, but hell, the art in the actual show took a while to really crystallise into its final polished form. Now, when it came to the Turtles, I couldn't be bothered reconfiguring the controls to play as anyone other than Player 1, but in this game, Player 1 is Marge, and I never found her particularly effective or interesting. My childhood crush Lisa, on the other hand, has a skipping rope which adds a bit of range to her attacks, so I'll be going with her for this playthrough. I honestly don't know if she's any better than the other characters, but for whatever reason I've always favoured characters who can attack at range. This is the same reason I was utterly convinced Dalsim was absolutely the best character in Street Fighter 2, which is a somewhat debatable proposition. And really, the range on Lisa's attacks is really not all that substantial, but hey, she was my nerdy fictional girlfriend back in the day, so I'll stick with her for old time's sake. The plot in this game is a little dubious. Now, Smithers might have been overeager to comply with Mr. Burns' whims, but a jewellery store heist? That's not really in character. And even if he is doing this at Mr. Burns' behest, would Burns ever really stoop to something as vulgar as mere theft? Well, I guess he nearly got killed literally taking candy from a baby, so who knows. Probably best not to think about it too much. The thing is, this game was developed while Season 2 of the show had been only partially created, so it's not as if the designers had a huge amount of backstory and character development to go on. Now, I criticise the Turtles arcade game for its setting appropriate but rather dull backgrounds, but the same absolutely cannot be said for The Simpsons, and it's this more than anything else that sets it apart from its amphibian-based cousin. The environments are full of yellow-skinned life, with loads of cameos from fan-favourite characters and other nods to the show. I love the massively meta advertisement for the very game you're playing, and it's cool to see Principal Skinner and Martin standing chummily together, even if you can't actually hit them. Not that Lisa would do such a thing. I, on the other hand, very much would, or at least I'd try to. The gameplay too is quite similar to the Turtles game, which is kind of remarkable when you realise we're comparing 4 regular small-town Americans, 2 of whom are children, to literal ninjas. You've got your attack button, you've got your jump button, and that's basically it, but the movement is fast and responsive, and whacking Springfielders with a skipping rope is no less satisfying than slicing up the Foot Clan with a katana. The different characters have different attacks, with Marge using her vacuum cleaner, Bart using his skateboard, and Homer using pure empty-headed rage. There's also a special jumping attack that can be activated by hitting both buttons at the same time, but just like in the Turtles, I pretty much forgot about that one. The Simpsons also apparently have team-up attacks where 2 different characters join together to launch a powerful special move, and I really wish I could show you that, but alas, as I am once again a solo player, I can't really... Wait, something's just occurred to me. Why don't I just map every character's controls to the same buttons? Surely that must be possible. Give me a moment. Oh yes, this is awesome! This makes the game more fun and a lot more hilarious. I feel like I'm some sort of Simpsons hive mind guiding around a giant beast with yellow flesh and blue hair. Doing this kind of makes sophisticated, skillful gameplay impossible, but hey, that was never on the cards anyway. Just barging through enemies while mashing the attack button is much more my style. And with the 4 elder members of the Simpson family under my control, it's even more enjoyable. I really wish I'd thought to do this with the Turtles. And now I can demonstrate the team attacks, although it's a bit tough to pick which one I want to do, since the Simpsons team up whenever 2 of them stand still for a second or 2 while near each other. And playing like this, they're all near each other most of the time. The parents' team attack consists of rolling around in a ball, and you've got to feel sorry for Marge in that situation, especially when Homer ends up on top. Lisa and Bart's team attack is functionally pretty similar, as they just hold hands and run around screaming maniacally like the preteen demons they are. Well, which Bart is at least. But that's not all. Homer can pick up either of the youngsters and carry them around on his shoulders, giving them a better vantage point for whacking baddies in the head. Marge, on the other hand, picks up her offspring and then throws them across the screen in an uncharacteristic burst of both strength and aggression. So, now I've unlocked the full power of 1 controller 4-player action, let's go through the rest of the game. The first boss is a wrestler for some reason. Maybe this is a reference to something that happened in the show? I'm honestly not sure. I admit it's been quite a few years since I watched the earliest episodes of The Simpsons, but I think I'd remember something like this. Well, whatever. Most of the bosses in this game seem pretty random, so I'll just go with it. Nonsensical or not, he's a pretty decent first boss. He's slow but powerful, not too much of a brutal challenge to start off with. Of course, I'm using my newly discovered 4-character cavalcade of violence technique, so it all comes down to button mashing. It's still fun though. Speaking of button mashing, you get a minigame after the boss fight which requires just that. You need to inflate balloons to follow Maggie, apparently, and if you pause the footage at just the right moment... Has dear sweet Marge ever looked so murderously angry? Well, I guess it fits for a game that's all about beating the hell out of a large chunk of Springfield's population. Level 2 is Springfield Amusement Park, and you're immediately assaulted by Krusty the Clown. Fortunately, once you bring him down, it turns out it's just an imposter. I'd hate to think that I'd murdered one of my favourite characters. Otto is here, manning a stall, as is Dr. Marvin Monroe for some reason. Otto I can understand, he might need a second job in between endangering the lives of Springfield's schoolchildren, but Dr. Marvin Monroe? Has he been inspired by Lucy from Peanuts to set up a psychiatry booth? That's the only explanation I can come up with. Along the way, the Simpsons release a giant brown bear, keep that in mind for later on, and encounter a horde of Binkies. For those who aren't aware, Binky is a character from a comic strip that Simpsons creator Matt Groening wrote and illustrated well before the Simpsons were even a thing. There are some links between the two worlds, though this arcade game is possibly the most well known. Keep your eyes out for another hint later in the game that one Simpsons character has a stronger relationship to Binky than you might expect. The boss is a giant Krusty balloon, which is slightly less random than a wrestler, I suppose, although it's functionally pretty similar. It's big, it bounces around, it punches you. It does also throw out smaller explosive balloons at one point, so that's something, I guess. Turns out this amusement park must have been located on the murder horn or something, because the floor collapses and the family are sent plummeting to their certain deaths. And here's an example of the slightly wonky artwork. Has Lisa ever looked like this even in the early episodes? If she has, I can't remember it. It seems kind of incongruous to me, and it's not the only thing in this game that does. It's not a big deal, the game still looks great, but I do think the Turtles arcade game was artistically more accurate to the show. Well, somehow the Simpsons survived the fall, though they are now in a graveyard. This place has a very Treehouse of Horror vibe to it, and I love the zombies cavorting around. Before long you come to Krusty's grave, so maybe I did kill Krusty in the second level after all? But can you see what else is wrong with this tombstone? If you said there's a crucifix despite Krusty being Jewish, well done. And yes, before it's pointed out, I know Krusty's religion wasn't established until Season 3, Episode 6, which aired some months after this game was released. See, I do research. By which I mean I skim Wikipedia entries occasionally. Anyway, perhaps even more strangely, Krusty's grave turns out to be a hidden entrance to an elevator that leads down to Moe's Tavern of all places. I knew Moe was a shady character, but I still cannot imagine why he'd have a secret elevator leading to a graveyard. Is he a body snatcher? If so, what does he do with the bodies? I shudder to think. Plus, what kind of secret elevator leads to wide double doors illuminated by neon signs, with literally a red carpet rolled out? Come on Moe, sort it out. Is this a spooky hidden passageway or the VIP entrance? The bosses here are two people with the same suit but different statures. Now, I'm honestly quite confused here. I really don't remember these characters from the show, but their design is so specific that I'm seriously wondering if I'm missing something. Let me know in the comments if you can shed any light on the matter. With those two out of the way, the Simpsons move on to the tavern itself, and this place is much more expansive than it's depicted in the show. That said, the tavern from TV wasn't located underground in a cemetery, so I guess anything goes. Moe himself is here of course, looking uglier than ever, and Barney is also present in his old school blonde-haired incarnation. He must also be deep in his cups because he seems to be trying to fight off imaginary spiders or something. Bleeding Gums Murphy is performing, which makes the game version of Moe's Tavern cooler than the TV version ever was. Plus there's blackjack, and hookers, maybe, and all this years before Futurama. The boss is... yep, once again I have no idea. Looks like a balder, lankier and somehow even uglier version of Moe. Up we go to the mountaintops, and hey, it's that bear again. This isn't really the most interesting level, although the famous three-eyed mutant fish makes an appearance. Apparently it also gained super strength when it was mutated, if its ability to swim up a vertical waterfall is any indication. The boss is that bear from before, to no one's surprise. Except once you beat it, it turns out it was just a guy in a bear costume, I guess. Seems like an odd choice. Maybe someone from the Simpsons production team objected to their characters beating up an innocent wild animal. Who can say? In any case, the family once again falls from a great height. This still fails to kill them, but it does render them unconscious, and so the next level takes place in their dreams. This is pretty cool, and more than a little creepy. The enemies here are surreal, ranging from donuts to saxophones to invisible power plant workers. And look carefully here. Notice anything odd? Yep, under all that hair, Marge has bunny ears, just like Binky from Matt Groening's earlier work. Apparently it was his intention that the TV show would eventually reveal those ears, until it was decided that was a bit too surreal for the tone of the show as it evolved. The boss is a bowling ball, which is suitably nonsensical but not exactly the most interesting thing from a visual perspective. And as far as dreams go, it's a real nightmare, with several phases and different attacks. Hurrah for free credits. Stage 7 is the Channel 6 Studios, and it's probably the longest and definitely the most varied level in the game. You start off in the news studio, which is notable for the absence of the iconic Kent Brockman, though it's possible the character didn't exist when this game was being developed. Then there's a set from some sort of sci-fi show which serves as a mid-boss arena. And finally you encounter another set from a Japanese-themed show, replete with ninjas and cherry blossoms. The boss is a kabuki-style warrior who even comes with his own iconic kabuki sound effect. You know the one I mean.
Up and at 'em!
And he's another tough fight, which is fair enough given he's huge and has a freaking spear. This is more of a final fight boss than a Simpsons one. And so we come to the final level. There are no standard enemies here, just a couple of bosses, the first of whom is Smithers. Not that he sounds anything like the Smithers we know and love from TV.
Welcome to my world.
He throws bombs around for a while and then rather conveniently blows himself up. The very final boss is, of course, Mr. Burns, the closest thing the show has to a real villain. Well, other than Sideshow Bob, perhaps. And Ned Flanders, of course. He is Satan, after all. Mr. Burns also sounds nothing like his TV counterpart.
Welcome to your grave, sucker.
And he's not much of a fighter, I guess, so he gets his own mech suit. And wow, this thing takes a licking but keeps on ticking. Now there's a reference that's even more dated than this game. I never got to this point back when I had to actually pay for credits, not even close. But even if I'd been as rich as Mr. Burns himself, I wouldn't have been able to afford the credits it would have taken to get through this fight. He has 3 phases and enough weaponry to demolish a small nation. But ultimately, he's no match for the flailing fist, skateboard, vacuum cleaner and skipping rope and, above all, infinite continues of the Simpsons clan. Once he's defeated, Maggie finishes him off with a pacifier. I mean, seriously, look at these eyes. She killed him stone dead. Hattie and Selma show up with Grandpa for absolutely no reason I can fathom, and the Simpson family, complete once again, walk off into the night. Woohoo, as Homer would no doubt say. And that's the game. Like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, it's an absolute classic that perfectly captures the essence of the TV show, even if the beat-em-up genre is a little less of a natural fit for The Simpsons. But when it's this fun, when it works this well, who cares? Okay, that's it for now. I've got one more arcade game in mind that I want to cover, but until next time, get off my lawn.